I'm sure you've heard the news. An event so shocking, so unprecedented, that the world is still struggling to process it. The United States has dropped a nuclear bomb in the West Philippine Sea, and in a move no one saw coming, China has been forced to surrender. But how did we get here, and what does this mean for the future of our world? December 10, 2025, a date that will be etched into the memory of every living person. It began like any other day, but would end as one of the most pivotal moments in modern history. The world wakes not to routine, but to sirens and breaking news. Across continents, millions are jolted from sleep by the shrill sound of alarms and the urgent voices of broadcasters. Streets empty as people rush to their screens searching for answers. Something unthinkable has happened in the West Philippine Sea. A flash of light, a rupture in global order. In a matter of seconds, the world's fragile peace is shattered, replaced by confusion and fear. Reports are chaotic, but one fact emerges: a nuclear weapon has been detonated over open water. The news spreads like wildfire, igniting panic and disbelief in every corner of the globe. News anchors struggle for words as graphics show a mushroom cloud blooming over the sea. The world watches transfixed and horrified as the unimaginable becomes reality. The headline: US deploys nuclear weapon in West Philippine Sea. The implications are staggering, and the questions multiply with every passing minute. The sub-headline: China issues unconditional surrender. In a single, shocking moment, the balance of power has shifted, and the world is left reeling. The world is frozen, stunned by the first use of nuclear arms in 80 years. In living rooms, public squares, and offices, people stare in disbelief, struggling to comprehend what has just occurred. This was no city strike, but a calculated show of force, an explosion over an uninhabited patch of ocean. The devastation is contained, but the message is unmistakable. The message is clear. The rules of modern warfare have been rewritten in a single blinding flash. The world's leaders scramble to respond, knowing nothing will ever be the same. The old world order is gone, vaporized in an instant. Centuries of diplomacy and deterrence have been upended, leaving only uncertainty in their wake. A new, more frightening era has begun, and no one knows the rules. In the corridors of power, leaders confer in hushed tones, searching for a path forward through the chaos. For decades, the West Philippine Sea was a powder keg, but no one predicted this. The world's most volatile flashpoint has now become the epicenter of a new global reality. The world holds its breath, teetering on the edge of the unknown. Every nation, every citizen, waits anxiously for the next move, aware that history is being written in real time. This is not a drill, not a movie. This is history unfolding in real time. The sense of unreality is overwhelming, but the consequences are all too real. The planet stares into the abyss, waiting for what comes next. In this moment, humanity stands united in uncertainty, its fate hanging in the balance. To understand this crisis, you must understand the battleground. The West Philippine Sea is a maritime superhighway, vital to global trade and rich in resources. China claims almost the entire sea, overlapping with the Philippines and others, fueling decades of conflict. Chinese Coast Guard ships have harassed Filipino boats, built artificial islands, and militarized the region. The Philippines, backed by a 2016 Hague ruling, found little relief. China ignored the verdict. The US, bound by treaty, increased its military presence, challenging China's claims. The region became a triangle of tension, China asserting dominance, the Philippines defending sovereignty, and the US maintaining the balance. Both sides escalated, deploying advanced weapons and reviving old bases. The sea bristled with firepower, and everyone knew a single miscalculation could ignite catastrophe. The world watched, waiting for the spark. The final weeks were a masterclass in brinkmanship. China's CNS Fujian conducted aggressive drills near Scarborough Shoal, a clear provocation. The US responded with a show of force. The USS Michigan, a nuclear-armed submarine, docked at Subic Bay. Tensions soared. Naval commanders on both sides were on hair-trigger alert. The breaking point came when Chinese vessels blockaded a Philippine resupply mission and fired live warning shots. The Philippines invoked its defense treaty with the US, calling the act an armed attack. Diplomatic channels blazed. Washington issued an ultimatum: withdraw or face consequences. Beijing refused, believing the US would back down. It was a fatal miscalculation. The American president faced an impossible choice: back down or escalate beyond imagination. The decision was made, an unthinkable step into the unknown. A low-yield nuclear warhead would be detonated over the empty ocean, right at the heart of the disputed 9-dash line. This was not a strike against cities or armies, but a calculated move to send a message that could not be ignored. Its purpose was clear: shock, not mass destruction, a warning shot to end all warning shots. The world had never seen such a demonstration, a nuclear signal meant to halt escalation before it spiraled out of control. The order was relayed to the USS Michigan, a silent sentinel beneath the waves. At precisely 4 a.m., a Trident missile erupted from the depths, arcing into the pre-dawn sky, its fiery trail illuminating the darkness and marking the beginning of a new era. Moments later, the warhead detonated high above the water, unleashing a blinding light and a colossal shockwave that rippled across the sea for miles. The force was overwhelming, a display of power that left no doubt about its intent. Electronic systems failed instantly. Alarms blared, and sailors on both sides of the conflict were thrown to the decks as the electromagnetic pulse swept through their ships. Chaos reigned in the aftermath, with crews scrambling to regain control. The iconic mushroom cloud rose slowly, visible for hundreds of miles, announcing to the world that the nuclear taboo had been shattered. The sky itself seemed to recoil from the violence. Stunned silence followed. Radio channels, once filled with routine chatter, now erupted with panic and disbelief as the scale of what had happened began to sink in. Chinese commanders, prepared for conventional war, were paralyzed by what they saw on their screens. The rules of engagement had changed in an instant, leaving them uncertain and afraid to act. This was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was a godlike act of judgment, a demonstration of power that transcended the old boundaries of warfare. The rules of the game had been obliterated, replaced by a terrifying new reality where anything seemed possible and nothing was certain. The world watched, breathless, as history changed in an instant. Newsrooms scrambled, leaders stared in disbelief, and ordinary people everywhere felt the weight of a new and dangerous era. The unimaginable had become reality. In a single moment, the world crossed a line it could never uncross. The effect on Chinese forces was immediate and absolute. The mushroom cloud was a psychological weapon, proof the US could strike anywhere. Chinese naval command collapsed, ships fled at full speed, militia scattered, and artificial island garrisons awaited orders in terror. In Beijing, leaders realized they had misjudged America's resolve. The nuclear strike shattered their confidence and exposed their vulnerability. Surrender came quietly, via back channel. China would withdraw all forces and respect the 2016 ruling. It was total capitulation. On Chinese social media, censorship failed. Videos of the retreat and the flash went viral, sparking panic. The myth of unstoppable strength was shattered. The dragon had been forced to its knees. The world had witnessed a superpower's silent surrender. As dawn broke, analysts struggled to explain the seismic shift. The world awoke to a reality that seemed unthinkable just hours before. Newsrooms buzzed with confusion and urgency as experts tried to make sense of the unprecedented event unfolding before their eyes. For 80 years, nuclear weapons were a deterrent. Now the US had used one for coercion. The unspoken rules of global power had been shattered, and the world's most destructive force was no longer just a threat but a tool of policy. The implications were staggering, sending shockwaves through every capital. The global balance of power was reset in 6 minutes. Decades of careful diplomacy and uneasy peace were upended in a single calculated act. The world's alliances and rivalries were suddenly thrown into question as leaders scrambled to reassess their positions. Experts compared it to a poker game. China kept raising, but the US ended the game with a nuclear card. The stakes had never been higher, and the rules had changed in an instant. The US had called China's bluff in the most dramatic way possible. The message to other powers was clear: there are limits, and America just defined them. Every nation was forced to reconsider its own red lines, and the boundaries of acceptable action had been redrawn overnight. China's military, built for conventional war, was bypassed entirely. Decades of investment in ships, tanks, and troops suddenly seemed irrelevant as the true contest shifted to the realm of nuclear brinkmanship. The US demonstrated it could strike with impunity from undetectable platforms. Submarines and stealth bombers, invisible and unstoppable, had rendered traditional defenses obsolete, leaving adversaries exposed and uncertain. By targeting empty sea, the US created a moral gray zone. No casualties, no justification for Chinese retaliation. The world was left grappling with the ethics of such a display, as leaders debated whether restraint or escalation would follow. The move was audacious, risky, and paralyzed China completely. In Beijing, leaders faced a crisis with no clear response, while global markets reeled from the uncertainty and fear of what might come next. The world now faced a terrifying precedent. Ordinary people everywhere watched in disbelief, realizing that the old certainties had vanished, replaced by a new and unpredictable order. The nuclear threshold had been crossed, and nothing would be the same. The future was suddenly uncertain, and the world could only wonder what new lines might be crossed next. The shockwave hit global markets instantly. Asian exchanges crashed, the yuan collapsed, and panic spread to Europe and the US. Oil prices soared, gold hit record highs, and the global economy plunged into chaos. In cities near the conflict, people rushed to stockpile essentials, fearing wider war. The nuclear detonation awakened Cold War fears in a new generation. Social media amplified panic with fake videos and wild rumors. Governments urged calm, but their voices were drowned out by fear and the image of the mushroom cloud. The world was gripped by a collective panic attack. No one knew if this was the end of a crisis or the start of something far worse. The sense of danger was everywhere, in every headline and every home. In the halls of power, diplomacy turned frantic. The UN Security Council convened in shock. Russia condemned the US, allies called for restraint. The American ambassador defended the strike as a last resort, designed to prevent wider war. China's sudden withdrawal made the justification hard to refute. World leaders scrambled to contain the fallout, fearing a new era of nuclear brinkmanship. Smaller nations watched in horror, fearing they'd become pawns in great power games. Protests erupted worldwide, America's moral authority in tatters. The US had reasserted dominance, but at a tremendous diplomatic cost. The battle was won, but the diplomatic war had just begun. The world was left to grapple with a new, dangerous reality. The immediate crisis is over, but the world stands on the edge of a new, uncertain era. The US has drawn a nuclear line in the sand. For now, no one dares cross it. But the long-term consequences are unknown. Has this act prevented war or opened Pandora's box? The nuclear taboo is broken. Other nations may now seek their own deterrents. The global economy is shattered, trust between nations eroded, and fear is everywhere. The rules-based order seems like a memory. Might now makes right. The US may have won, but the victory is hollow, and the silence is deafening. The world has changed forever, and what comes next is anyone's guess.